Hey, welcome back. It's another week. We are Blerds in the Attic. We are here. We will be here. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the thing about this thing is every week I love being able to catch up. I'm Cheo Hodari Coker. I'm here with,
David Betancourt.
and that's the thing. We just kind of go back and forth with this. You know what I'm saying? All things blurred, sometimes business, sometimes behind the scenes. But the thing is that we love this culture and we love talking about this culture. And so, on one hand, it's a chance to do that. On the other hand, I mean, it's just really always great catching up with you, man, because
Yeah,
something's
man.
always going on. You
How's
know,
Hawaii treating you?
it's interesting. Today was a rainy day. I mean, but that's the thing. It's like while y'all are freezing out there, I mean, I get what 2 days of rain, and the rest of it is like literally, 80 degrees. I know this is the world's smallest violin, playing, but I'm excited for a lot of reasons. Tomorrow is my 53rd birthday,
Feliz
so
cumpleaños.
gracias por eso. 53 is like, man, I just even saying it aloud, I'm old, man. I think I saw something on TikTok. It's like I'm at 55. If once you get at 53, I'm in OG status. I'm past Unk, but
Wait, you're no longer an unk after tomorrow?
yeah, we no. I mean, I think what happens is like your OG. What is it? 45 to 55, you're OG, and then after 55, you're an elder. And then
Oh,
Unk is basically like 35 to 45, something like that. There's this one meme, or not meme, this thing on TikTok where this guy breaks all the categories down
I've
from
seen that.
YN all the
I've
way
seen
to
that.
Unk and Elder. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's pretty funny. So I'm not quite an Elder yet.
Well,
Um,
congrats on your soon-to-be new status.
no, thank you, man. But the biggest thing for me is I'm going to be running the Honolulu Marathon tomorrow, this will actually be my third time running it.
On your birthday, you're running that.
No, my birthday's tomorrow. The Honolulu Marathon. Marathons are almost always on Sundays,
Oh, okay,
so
okay.
I'm running that on Sunday.
I hate running. That's why I don't know that.
Well, the crazy thing about a marathon is, and I know this sounds really strange, but you don't remember the 26 miles. You only remember the point two. Because by the time you get to point two and you're running, I don't care if you run, walked it, or done any of that. You just want to stop. You don't want to do it anymore. And then people are at the end, and you're just afraid that you're going to be that person that falls on their face, and you're still trying to just like keep up some kind of momentum. That point two is the hardest point two you will ever run in your life. So
Hey,
I'm
man,
just hoping that having lost about 36 pounds, that it'll be easier than it was the other times. But we'll see.
you probably got a new 40-yard dash time at this point, dropping all that weight.
Yeah, you know what it is? It's like you don't really feel it. I feel differently. What happens is that I don't, it doesn't hurt until way past the point where earlier with it being heavier, my feet would have hurt a lot earlier. Got flat feet. My feet would have hurt a lot earlier. It's just that kind of thing. I mean, I'm just really my thing. My training was kind of off this time, so I'm just hoping. Well, finishing is always the goal, and I've never not finished. So I'm still gonna finish. I want to finish faster than I have in the past, but I'm gonna basically spend the year training so that by this time next year, which actually I think on my 54th birthday is going to actually be on my birthday, December 12th,
Oh,
and for
wow.
that one, I'm definitely gonna be going all out. You know.
Hey, man, well, feliz cumpleaños y muchos más, as we say. That's a big deal. God bless all you all that can run marathons. I was an athlete back in the day in high school. I ran track. I was captain of the team, but I was a sprinter. And, I hated running the mile, just the 4 laps around the
Oh
track.
man, don't even start that warm up mile, man. I hated the warm up mile. That was awful, man.
Oh, man. It just shudder and just think about it. So I have nothing but respect for people that actually train and go through marathons. I'm still a weightlifter. I hit the gym. I try to go 3-4 days a week if I can, just to, because at our age, at our advanced but still very good looking age, you have you can slack a little bit in your 20s. You can eat more pizza than lift more weights and still look good. But once you get to a certain age, your body lets you know that if you're not going to put in the work, then that's what you're going to look like. And
Yeah.
so,
But no. So for me, that 33. 33 is that age where like there's something clicks and all of a sudden every single carb that you've ever eaten in your life just sticks to your body.
Yep.
You
Yep.
know.
I'm there. So God bless you. Good luck at the marathon, and I hope you enjoy your birthday, man. A Hawaiian birthday. I'm over here in this 30-degree weather, freezing my butt off. So I'm slightly envious.
Nah, man. Well, I know there's that over there is the world's smallest violin for you playing for my pain, but
Oh, it's gonna rain in Hawaii on my birthday.
but hey, man, I'm actually happy that's going to rain because when you're out there, like last time I ran it in 2023, it was so humid. Like after about 20 miles, I started breaking down. So I'm hopeful that if there is rain, I mean that it's a little cooler. But who knows? It's just you. That's the crazy thing about Hawaii. It's like that's why there's all the rainbows because it rains and then the sun shines at the same time, and it's just like it's funny complaining about rainbows just makes
Complain
even worse.
like, it's gonna rain on my birthday, and then there are gonna be all these rainbows to celebrate the day of my birth. Jesus, man.
Oh my God. All right.
Here I am. I'm cool because my birthday's on the first day of summer, but you're like, yeah, Hawaiian rainbows, and then Jason Momoa is gonna come and show me an early cut of Supergirl. It's gonna be great.
Now, that would be dope. But if I was going to say that, man, I'm just hoping that we get season 2 of Chief of War, man. That
Yeah,
would be
true
the
that.
greatest birthday present of all. Although the new Knives Out movie debuting tonight is a good early present.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. So let's
And
get
then
into the
also,
blur down for today's podcast, man. We got a lot to talk about.
no doubt, no
So
doubt.
today's blurred down is going to be we're going to talk about the Supergirl trailer dropped, and that went live at noon Eastern. I was hoping it was going to be like the Michael trailer dropped at like 9 in the morning Eastern time, but the Supergirl trailer did not drop until noon Eastern. So that's been all over the internet. We're going to be talking about Warner Brothers and where they're going to end up. All signs lead to we don't know.
True.
We know it's a two-horse race between Netflix and Paramount coming in with a counteroffer. So we'll get into that. We're going to talk about Disney and their current plans for incorporating uh, some of their characters into AI.
Don't get
Uh,
me started.
yeah, that's not going to be a fun conversation. Scarlett Johansson, fresh off Jurassic Park, which I finally saw over the weekend, the new one. She's circling, potentially rumored to be considering a part in the Batman Part 2 alongside Robert Pattinson, directed by Matt Reeves. And we're going to talk about Sarah Pichelli, co-creator of Miles Morales, and her recent comments about being the co-creator of one of the most popular characters in pop culture, but not really seeing much royalties from that.
So we want to be saying more money, but it was actually no money.
No money, no money, no money.
Yeah, nah, it's a cold hard world out here. It
Yeah,
really,
hey,
really is.
take from me. I got an action figure that I helped design right behind me.
Well, that's what we can get into that when with the Luke Cage. I also inadvertently helped design that one, and it's a reminder like you have to create and own your IP. It's really
Yeah,
important.
hands down. So let's talk
Um,
about. So, did you watch the Supergirl trailer right when it dropped? Did you stumble across it on social media? Did you pull it up on YouTube on the
well,
TV?
this morning, which because I'm 5 hours behind you, so by
What
the
time
time I
was it for
watched it
you?
this morning, it was afternoon for you.
Okay,
And I watched it, and are we going to watch it together right now, or do we just always going to talk about it?
we're just gonna talk about it right now. I think by the time this episode is out, everybody would have seen it.
The thing for me is you just felt the James Gunnization of all of it. I
Isn't
mean,
that wild? Especially considering how he's not directing this one.
well, that's what I'm saying. It's like the sets look like Guardians of the Galaxy. The humor was Galaxy esque. Um, I think this is the thing about it, and this is not to take away from the director. It's the same problem that very few people. Okay, even though I'm going to date myself with this, if you watch the pilot for the television show Miami Vice, the one that has Philip Michael Thomas as Ricardo Tubbs, and of course, Don Johnson as Sonny Crockett. If off the top of my head, if I asked you who directed that pilot, who would you say?
I would not know.
Okay,
My parents were
most
making me go to
people
bed by then.
most people would say Michael Mann because, of course, he's Miami Vice he was known for, and of course he also did the feature film Miami Vice. But Michael Mann executive produced it. He did not write that episode, which was actually written by Anthony Yerkovich, and he did not direct it. It was actually a black director by the name of Thomas Carter, who was one of the stars of The White Shadow, and then also he did an Eddie Murphy movie, Metro. But one of the most iconic scenes of all time, like in terms of Crockett and Tubbs in the Ferrari, and Tubbs loading the shotgun, and Phil Collins, all of that with the pastels and everything else, people kind of called the Michael Mann aesthetic. And of course, because he was the showrunner, and I know this from being a showrunner, he had a very heavy hand in all of those decisions.
Mm-hmm.
But Thomas Carter doesn't necessarily get the credit that he deserves as being, having directed one of the most groundbreaking pilots of all time. One that 40 years later, I still revisit on a bi-weekly basis, just the use of music and everything else. And so I think that's the problem with this Supergirl. And this is not to criticize James Gunn, but there's so many stylistic trademarks of his within it. The criticism and the triumph is going to live and die with him, regardless of how well the movie does. And I kind of feel bad for the director in that standpoint, because, I don't know how much is his personal stamp. I mean, is the first thing. The second thing is, I mean, you can't ever really truly judge a movie by its trailer, because one battle after another had a terrible trailer. They tried to
Mm-hmm.
sell it as like this kind of kooky comedy. If you go back to the trailers, the movie was much better, much deeper, and nothing like, what the trailers tried to set up, because the trailers were awful for that movie. But then the movie turned out to be really, really good.
Right.
It's at the top of most people's list, but we can get into that later. But I think the thing is that there are some, I mean, the whole drinking problem thing is one thing. I know that they're saying, okay, well, now the fact that you get to have an irreverent female superhero, but I mean, so now you get the female Hancock. I mean, eh, what does that mean? Mind you, okay, I need to be careful from the standpoint of I don't want to make the same mistake that a lot of critics make, which is that with an infamiliarity with the source material,
Yeah.
that they make assumptions. So, to be fair, I really do need to read, the collection of Supergirl issues that
Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow is the series.
right. And so, was that one of the trademarks of that series? A
Yeah.
kind of
Yes. Yes,
Okay,
it was.
so the fact that that's close to the source material, I think that's praiseworthy. You know, um, I think it's also interesting that because of the fact that she witnessed the destruction of Krypton, she's gonna have a much different viewpoint of it than, of course, her cousin Kal-El has, and as a result, heck, if I watched the Earth blow up, I might start drinking too.
And
You know what I'm saying? So I think it'll be interesting as long as it really gets into that. The first look of Lobo, I thought looked great, but they didn't emphasize it. It was like
no,
it
it
was
was
almost
half a second.
subliminal,
Half a second.
So that'll be interesting to see. I mean, I think overall, even though I feel the trailer was kind of meh, I feel that there's a movie there, and I want to see it. And I'm hoping that the director really does get his props, because there are so many James Gunn, trademarks sprinkled in throughout. I don't want to say that he's heavy-handed, but his aesthetic is now the aesthetic, and it seems that everything coming out of DC has that kind of feel to it. And it'll be interesting to see, if he's able to kind of have a certain level of diversity in terms of artistic viewpoint. Because I mean, the Matt Reeves, we already know that there's a Batman sequel in the works. That's official, and that's definitely going to be something different than what we, more Matt Reeves' established aesthetic than it being fitting into a kind of, bright and funny, irreverent James Gunn style, take on things.
That's what's really fascinating to me about this. I thought the trailer was all right. It's a teaser. There's going to be one more trailer between now and the end of June of next year when this movie comes out. Uh, what's fascinating to me about this is 99% of comic book movies movies based on comic books, especially when you're getting into Marvel and DC. They always take like kind of little snippets from the comics for inspiration, but you never really see like a full blown like adaptation of a storyline. It's always like a little bit here, a little bit there. One of the first things James Gunn announced when he made his first kind of statements as the co-studio head of DC Studios was that the Supergirl movie was going to be completely based on Supergirl One of Tomorrow, which is a comic book series by Tom King, who is a friend of mine. I know Tom. Tom lives here in Washington, D.C. When I was a comic book culture reporter at the Washington Post, I did a lot of stories on him and his frequent collaborations with artist Mitch Gerards. So I know Tom, and I know he's been busy as heck because I think he's also producing the Green Lantern show that's about to come on HBO Max.
Wow.
Uh, but it I know it's a very unique take on Supergirl. The kind of, you know, drinking your sorrows away kind of thing is definitely a part of it. They kind of hinted at it at the end of Superman, where Superman says to one of the Superman robots, you know, my cousin likes to go party on planets with red suns, so she has no powers. So there's some moments in the story where she's not at full strength. But it's just wild because we've had the last 15, 20 years of superhero movies from Marvel and DC. And for a studio head to say, no, I like this comic book so much, this comic is just going to be the Supergirl movie. That was like a whoa moment for me.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen a lot. For as much as Kevin Feige leans on his knowledge of the Marvel Comics library, he didn't do a straight adaptation of an Avengers storyline. It was just like, pieces here and there. So it's very that's what's fascinating to me. It is a story I've read. It is a story I plan on rereading before I see the movie. I honestly think one of the best parts of the comic is the art of the artist. I don't want to mess up her name. Bilquis Evely, whose art is so unique, and so she's one of those artists that as soon as you see the art, you know the person who drew it. Um, but it's fascinating to me to see because this DC Studios slate is so important. This is number 2 coming right after on the heels of Superman. This is a
Hmm.
very important movie for them. But I was actually watching there's these guys on YouTube called Heroes Reforged, and it's Adam, Hector Navarro, Augustin Rios, really cool guys. And one of them attended the event they had I think in New York, where it was kind of like a big event to preview the trailer to a bunch of social media people. And James Gunn, they said that James Gunn there kind of got into the fact that he's really into that current era of, like, the Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen, and considers that era to be some of the greatest comics of all time. And he's very, inspired by that. So I think it's, this trailer did not show it. This was a very quick trailer.
Hmm.
Playing the Blondie song definitely gives it the James Gunn feel. I was actually surprised by that because I think homeboy who does the music for Game of Thrones, Ramin Djawadi,
Hmm.
is supposed and don't get me started on the Game of Thrones theme song. I love that. Supposedly he's going to be doing the music. I don't know if that's official yet, but supposedly so.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of that makes sense because the thing is that at Marvel, for example, when James Gunn did Guardians of the Galaxy and he bought an AM 70s rock aesthetic, you know, so many great songs of the 70s, it gave all of us as creators permission to bring our own style and aesthetic to the characters that we were, gifted. So, for example, because he did that for Guardians, and people forget Guardians were just like kind of like a forgotten afterthought. Nobody thought that movie was going to do what it was, but he knew exactly what it was going to do in terms of his feel for the characters, in terms of them being outcast, kind of misfits, but then at the same time, because he added a certain style and flavor to it, and then made it all tie in, to the mom's death and the mixtape for her son and all that stuff from with an emotional core. I mean, I think taking that, it worked really, really well. And it was because of the success of that I was able to say, look, I'm not going to do a contemporary hip hop score for Luke Cage. I'm going for my era, mid 90s, Timberlands, Carhartt, like, 92 era hip hop, and giving, Luke Cage or Mike Coulter, who was, we're the same age, he's a little bit young, but we're roughly the same age. That's our era of hip hop. So,
Yeah.
like, rather than trying to make it something different, let's do that. And I could do that. And then the success of Luke Cage also allowed, Mike Colt. I mean, I'm sorry, Ryan Coogler got less resistance. Ryan told me that when he wanted to put Too Short and Public Enemy, the Too Short song in Black Panther, as well as Public Enemy poster. Not that Kevin Feige ever gave him any real resistance, but there was what he was able to do that, he said, because he had something that he could point to within the Marvel universe where hip hop existed and it worked, and so we don't have to worry about offending anybody if I'm really gonna, make this real, as he's always done, So the thing is that I think that's more the marketing saying, hey, because that worked for Guardians, let's give it that feel. And so I think doing that, and of course, it gave the entire thing this Guardians feel, even that kind of, world where, it just, all of it. But the thing about Craig Gillespie as the director, of course, he directed I, Tonya. He directed Lars and the Real Girl, which means that you have a director that knows how to be there for his lead actress from the standpoint of giving them, the support to get deep into character. And so, you know what I'm saying? Because that's the thing. Is like, particularly with I, Tonya, it's that's a very irreverent movie. In terms of you know giving everybody the opportunity to not be likable, but then ultimately you understanding them without making any of them, cartoons or parodies of themselves. And even though I think the trailer it seems at first to kind of be like that, that one line that I thought was really the whole theme of the movie. It's like, I'm going to paraphrase terribly. I think it was Superman is truth, justice, and the American way. I just tell the truth.
She said Superman sees the good in people and I see the truth in them.
Yeah, that to
Something
me
like that.
is okay. If the movie's that, the whole thing succeeds. If it lives up to its theme in that way and really explores that, then any kind of mad reaction I have up and down to the trailer, that line really makes me say, you know what, maybe the marketing I'm not responding to as well, but I think there's a real movie in here, and I can't wait to see it.
And yeah, I think first of all, everyone's talking about that line at the end of the trailer. That line, that's fantastic writing, perfect delivery, and I thought it was great in a trailer that really didn't give you anything. You're at
Hmm.
least seeing a little bit of what uh, Supergirl is about. Millie Alcock, Supergirl is about. I
Well,
think
that was always a screenwriting trick that my uncle Richard Wesley, the writer of Uptown Saturday Night and Let's Do It Again, amongst a bunch of other movies. That's one of the things he always taught me. He said, basically, around the time of the Act Two climax, you want the theme of the movie to come as a piece of dialogue, said preferably by your main character. Sometimes it's not always your main character. Sometimes it's the person next to the main character, but it has to come out in the line of dialogue. It summarizes the entire thing.
and that's absolutely the theme of the movie. This isn't a Superman movie; it's a Supergirl movie. I did think it was hilarious when Crypto uh, urinated on the Daily Planet newspaper. That was just funny. She's laying out Daily Planets with her cousin on the front page as a toilet for their Kryptonian dog. But I think there's gonna is this because David Cornswet Superman was such a, as he should be, kind of a goody two shoes. Are they just trying to Superman's gonna be this kind of like Supergirl's gonna be this punk rock party or no it's not about that. It's about and one thing that Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow is about the comics written by Tom King. When Superman left Krypton, he was a baby. He doesn't remember the destruction. Kara
Right.
Zor-El does. She was there when it was happening. And whereas Superman just had to learn that his culture was destroyed, that the planet that he's from was destroyed, Kara actually witnessed it at an age where she could understand what was going on. And Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, is about the impact that has on her and why she's trouncing around the universe looking for trouble, because she's internalized that grief and pain about losing her home world and seeing it happen.
Right. And so you have an actress, Amelia Alcock, that has, the talent to really both embody both the Supergirl elements, because seeing her fight and kick ass in the costume was great, but she also has the emotional depth and the poise as an actress to really pull in all those darker themes that you're talking about in a way that, basically enhance character rather than sucking all the joy or fun out of the movie. I think it's possible to do both. And I think that, the way that that'll lay out, I mean, I'm confident that between Craig Gillespie and James Gunn, that they'll be able to pull that off. And that's all. And that's really kind of one of the interesting things as we kind of transition into the next element of our blurred down, as we're talking about the Warner Brothers, Netflix, Paramount of it all, is on one question. There are a lot of Snyderverse people that are saying, okay,
Man, this thing will not die.
yeah, well, no, they won't let that die, which is interesting. And so you have Snyderverse people that are like, if Paramount wins, they're going to broom James Gunn and bring back the Snyderverse. You know, I guess because I think Zack Snyder has either some relation, has some kind of working relationship or is friends with Ellison, because David Ellison, has, for many years at Skydance as someone who has worked with some of the top action directors in all of Hollywood. He's had decades relationships with a lot of people,
Well,
and
Snyder has
so
a relationship with both sides too, because he's done stuff for Netflix as well.
right, and also let's not forget that James Gunn, wrote one of Zach's, what was it, Dawn of the Dead, or yeah, I believe that was so. Everybody knows everybody. That's just the nature of Hollywood.
Yes,
But
James Gunn wrote the screenplay for Dawn of the Dead.
yeah, but I think at the same time also what it is that as we get into one, okay, maybe you've been out in the woods, or frozen, and suspended animation, but because your World War II bomber, was down by the Red Skull and you froze, and now you've been awakened from your 76 years later. But what's happening right now is that Netflix, which I can't even believe I'm old enough to remember when Netflix actually mailed DVDs, and
Oh, I was there.
and
I
Friday
was
was
there
a
with you, brother.
blockbuster, and Friday was a blockbuster night,
Well, it wasn't
but
a blockbuster night once you were told you can keep this DVD disc as long as you want and just return it whenever. That was the
yeah,
beginning of the end.
genius when you think about it. But Netflix now buying a legacy studio like Warner Brothers, and so just get past that, okay? So I don't even know what the acquisition price was. It's like
It
100
was between 72 and 82 billion dollars.
billion with a B.
Yeah.
Okay, to give people scale and context, um, Disney purchased Star Wars for $4 billion, and that seemed like all the money in the world. And honestly, had George Lucas waited, he probably could have gotten 25, 30, 35 billion dollars for the Star Wars IP.
He absolutely could have.
But let's not even get into that. So that kind of money, and a lot of people are thinking that, and because of the fact that Ted Sarandos has made no secret of his ambivalence about the theatrical experience, there's been a huge fear amongst many of my writer, director, actor, friends, that if Netflix wins, in terms of officially acquiring the movie side of Warner Brothers, not only is it about the layoffs, but also the fact that they're basically going to close the window for theatrical releases to
Oh, it's
probably
going to
two
be
weeks.
obliterated.
I don't necessarily think so. And I know this sounds crazy, but here's the thing. there are a couple different ways this could play out. Yes, absolutely. Um, they could just absorb everything into Netflix and just have these short windows and do that. But I think what happens is that, Ted has friendly relations with virtually every major director in Hollywood. And directors and writers are writing specifically for theatrical release. And yeah, okay, you put it out for 2 weeks in order to qualify for the Oscars, but now we're in a situation where if you're profiting off of Warner Brothers' very considerable distribution and ability to put movies out, you're making money on that. Also, the other thing that people aren't thinking about necessarily, and I know this is kind of crazy, but the market cap on AMC, you know, the homes, AMC theaters is what, $1 billion? I think it's like at the most 1.5. So who's to say the same way that Sony purchased Alamo Drafthouse? Because there was the 70-year-old rule that said that studios couldn't own movie theaters.
Yep.
And that rule got quietly overturned in 2022, 2023, right? So who's to say that Netflix couldn't possibly, if this merger goes through, keep Warner Brothers as their theatrical wing, purchase AMC or Regal slash Cineworld or whoever puts out movies, and then they own both box office, physically going to see movies at home. I mean, sorry, out in theaters, profit off of that, not just from just the Warner Brothers side, which is just putting a movie out, but also from, owning the theaters, the popcorn side, and also dictating how many screens a Warner Brothers movie appears on, and then on top of all that, making money when it comes right back on Netflix. They get to there's a situation where they can control the entire ecosystem. If you're thinking, and who's to say that they wouldn't necessarily do that? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't think that it's necessarily going to be as dire as people think that's going to be. But on the Paramount side, it gets interesting because yes, Paramount and Warner Brothers coming together as a studio makes that bigger. But then you have, without getting fuck it, we can get political on the show. I mean, you see my social media. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of this administration. Um, you have a direct line from the White House. They've already resurrected rush hour, you know, and because of the Ellisons being very close from to the White House and probably having a very well greased path towards you know deregulation or towards getting it approved, the merger, because of all the inside business and the fact that Jared Kushner is listed as one of the potential Paramount investors should a merger
And
go
it
through.
should be pointed out that this offer, now the Netflix deals between 72 and 82 billion. The Paramount hostile bid, and is considered a hostile bid, $108.4 billion.
Right. So then it becomes a whole, we can get into Barbarians of the Gate, Succession. You can watch plenty of TV shows, TV movies, and series about the kinds of shenanigans that could happen. I, the thing is that if bidding opens again, who's to say? And okay, mind you, understand that, despite the fact that we're both, I'm an ex-journalist, David is a journalist, we still talk to a lot of people. This is just us just riffing. So we have no inside knowledge of anything.
Right.
This is us speculating, fantasy football, so to speak, with film. But who's to say that if it opens up again, because everybody's trying to fight for this, who's to say that Amazon or Apple, after particularly Apple already is starting to, the quality of their television shows is now starting to rival both Netflix as well as HBO Max, which will be merged if that came through. Who's to say that Apple, who has the cash, they're $1 trillion company, they don't need to go to anybody to raise funds to come up with $100 million. Even the Ellisons have all types of money in that. Netflix just basically wrote a check because they have less debt and it's an all cash bid. But Apple has no debt. Apple could basically wait for it to happen and then buy the merged company, or they could step in right now, come up with an even higher bid, and it wouldn't even hurt them at all. And then they would have the perfect vehicle to unite their hardware in terms of the phones and iPads and everything else with a movie studio. You know, it makes a lot of sense on paper.
So you think
You
it
know,
could potentially be more than a two-horse race?
well, it depends on how crazy and how hostile it gets. I mean, I think already, you know, I think that there's a definitive advantage that Warner Brothers has because with Netflix, because Netflix has already stepped in first. Netflix, has all the money. It's not There's no third and fourth and fifth investors. Um, with a higher bid, I mean, all it's really going to do is Netflix might have to up their bid. They already have some kind of like $5 billion kill fee of some kind, where if the deal doesn't go through, they still got to pay
They'll
five
pay
billion
the
dollars,
yeah.
which is wild. Like it's just one of those things where like who knows who's going to win. Um, I I think that things are. It's a very weird time in the business, but it's not unprecedented. You know,
No, I
you
mean,
have to go.
look who Marvel has behind them. Marvel has Disney behind them. I mean, are we at a point right now where if you are a legacy movie studio, you have to have a corporate giant behind you to survive? Are we there yet?
Well, I think we're at a point where it's like nobody knows. I mean, famous William Goldman statement when he used to say nobody knows anything. What he meant by that is that every single metric that you have about what makes a movie work is ultimately guesswork because every 5 to 10 years somebody subverts tradition, subverts expectation, and comes up with something that's just so innovative. Who could have predicted Get Out? Who could have predicted Sinners? Who could have predicted Iron Man or the Avengers being as popular as they were, more popular than the X-Men or Superman or Batman or any of the quote unquote big dog legacy characters, either from Marvel or DC, you know? Um, because I remember as a comic book reader, X Men. It was always The X Men were always at the forefront. I mean, the Avengers were cool, but they weren't like you didn't read the Avengers comics like saying, "Oh shit," the way that you read Chris Claremont and other people on the X Men side, and
And
so
John
that
Byrne.
expectation carried over to the movies. But there's no way that you could have thought that the Avengers movies were going to be as big, if not bigger than that, or any of what happened with Feige in that unprecedented almost 20-year run. You know, so I think where we're at is we're at a point now where kids, fuck it, I'm 53 years old. I can say kids. I'm finally old enough to call people in their 20s kids. I really am. Okay. Um, the thing is you have this new generation that is used to watching things on their devices, on phones, on tablets, occasionally on their bigger computer screens, and then ultimately on television. Like I went to see Kill Bill, the whole bloody affair in theaters. I hadn't seen that movie in theaters in over 20 years, and it was spectacular seeing it in the movies again. There are just details when you see something that big that as many times as I've rewatched that movie, you just see things that you forgot about.
Yeah.
And there's little things that it was just really a great experience watching that movie in movie theaters. And I disagree with Ted Sarandos on that. There is something special about going to the movies and seeing things on the biggest screen possible. It's a communal experience, and at the same time, visually, it's just I don't care how big your home screen is. Yes, it's some movies are great at home, and I love reliving movies at home after having seen them in the movie theater. And I think that you can't really replace that, no matter how hard you try. You know. So I think the thing that's really interesting is like it's a war for attention. It's a war for screens.
Yeah.
We're in a weird place where people would rather watch 12 hours of characters they love than 2 hours of characters. It's weird right now.
Here's my thing about this whole, because a lot of the chatter that's going on, there's all this Snyderverse chatter, both on if Netflix gets Warner Brothers or if Paramount gets Warner Brothers. And that I think Zach has been sharing some photos from his Justice League days online, and the fandom is kind of saying, oh, he's just waiting for this WB deal, then the Snyderverse is going to be back. You finally have all we heard during the Justice League era of Warner Brothers, the live action Justice League era with Henry Cavill, Jason Momoa, Gal Gadot, Ray Fisher. All we heard was how disorganized Warner Brothers was in relation to the DC universe. Back then it was called the DC EU, which was the unofficial name, DC Extended Universe. All we heard was DC needs a Kevin Feige.
Right.
Oh, if only DC had a Kevin Feige. Oh, if Kevin Feige were here, this Justice League movie wouldn't have happened like this. When is DC going to get, especially when Warner Brothers was going through leadership changes, and whenever there was leadership change, that kind of affected how much attention or how much effort was going towards the DC movies. So you finally get that guy. And you not only get that guy, but you pluck a guy from the Kevin Feige coaching tree, if you will, someone who's
Mhm.
been a part of a successful superhero cinematic comic book inspired theatrical universe. So you bring James Gunn over, and now James Gunn is your Kevin Feige. And 2 movies in with this potential merger purchase happening, you're ready to just throw it all away just so Zack Snyder can make another Justice League movie? That makes absolutely no sense at all. And it would be dumb not to at least let James Gunn and Peter Safran, which they've already said this is a 10-year journey,
Mhm.
give them their decade and see what happens.
Well, not only that, I mean, I think in a weird way, if there is a merger between Warner Brothers and Netflix, it gives them the DC universe even more space to spread its wings.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, so for example, like if you want to see the Suicide Squad cut that David Ayer's been talking about for years, you really have the bandwidth to do that because you can go hard R expanded version of that on HBO Max, which I think even if it went with Netflix, they would still keep the they already said that branding wise that they would keep certain things alive. The same way that like Ford owns Aston Martin, or
Yeah.
that, Toyota owns Lexus. You know what I mean? It's like you still have your brands. The checks all go to one bank, but different brands, different experiences, different price points, they can do that. And I think that that's from what some of the things that Ted Sarandos has been talking about in the press is that he's not going to fold the HBO name. He's not going to fold HBO Max. It's just that Netflix will own it. And what it gives them, things that weren't quite right for Netflix can still exist on HBO Max. You
That's what's
know,
so wild for me with HBO Max. So like, okay, say Netflix gets it.
Mhm.
Are they going to let HBO Max continue to exist? And if you want to stream DC movies, will those DC movies ever make it over to Netflix? That's an
Well,
interesting dynamic.
I think what happens is, yeah, I think that's possible. I think that things, the whole beauty of Cinemax was Cinemax always had like, I mean, yeah, because when I was a kid, Cinemax always kind of had like like Billy Bob, not Joe Bob Briggs and the kind of like grindhouse kind of movies, deep sex, deep violence, things that weren't really right for HBO but existed ended up on Cinemax,
Yeah.
and then HBO had its own thing, like I think it allows you to do that, to have specialty labels to a certain extent. Like if you're going to make an analogy to music, like before Def Jam had its own identity musically, even though it was owned by the same company that also owned Island and Bob Marley and owned, like everybody had their own identity, even though it was all one company, right? And I think that this is the opportunity from a filmic television standpoint to do that, as opposed to just collapsing everything and then leaving these things with no identity. Like perfect example is like um, if you look at what's happened with Paramount taking over. Paramount has always owned MTV and it's owned BET for a long time now, but now MTV, I don't even think MTV really exists anymore, except as a specialty logo. They even got rid of the MTV logo for 101 Studios when you watch Landman or any of the Taylor
Oh wow.
Sheridan, television shows. At the same time, BET, I mean BET, which was DC based, had its own identity. It was
Oh
its
yeah.
own thing,
Yeah.
and over the years, it's become more and more and more innocuous. It's annoying watching BET on television because you got 7 or 8 television, commercial breaks. You can't even get a rhythm like watching a show, even though, like, for example, like the New Edition, um, you know, miniseries was one of the best things ever produced. It just in general, like,
Yeah.
it's really up there, yeah, as kind of a cult classic. But if you watched it when it came out, with all those damn commercial breaks, you couldn't even do ad breaks. It was
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's much better experience now watching without commercial breaks, and you really kind of appreciate, the acting and a lot of the direction choices that Chris Robinson made and everything else. BT had an identity. They never should have gotten rid of BT Uncut. You know what I'm saying? Like there are all these things that I think are interesting, and I think that if you have a company that's the craziest thing about Netflix is that every time you go to the algorithm to watch something, you find something different. There's a different pocket or groove inside of it that's unlike watching a movie anywhere else. So I think that it does give new life, but as long as they also give movies a chance to breathe under the Warner Brothers label, I mean, who's to say that if you have beef with Christopher Nolan, who was fighting for this, you could give Christopher Nolan and Ryan Coogler, who have very much success with Warner Brothers, you can say, hey, do your thing. Here's the first look. You guys have the track record now. Boom, green light your own movies. Like, they could do that. I don't know. There are a lot of things. I mean, I think no matter who wins, there are going to be a lot of changes. This Warner Brothers, Netflix, Paramount thing, no matter how it shakes, doesn't scare me as much as our next topic, which is this whole a deal that got announced where Disney is basically licensing its characters to OpenAI for $1 billion for 3 years, meaning that you can use, for what it sounds like, virtually any Disney, which means Disney, Marvel, Pixar, Star Wars, any character you can now openly use and will have tailored uses in Sora 2, which Sora 2 already, in terms of the technological leap, we've gone from, those really dumb videos of like, Will Smith eating spaghetti looking really weird to now re- frighteningly realistic Tupac videos where like Tupac is coaching football, or Tupac in the WWE, Tupac showing up, a Pixar movie with someone trying to solve Tupac's murder. I I I mean, some of the story too. If you go down the story 2 rabbit hole with Tupac, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
But that's one thing. But now, like the fact that you would be able to do things with these characters, I, I think it's a very dangerous precedent from an artistic standpoint because of the fact that it means nothing's locked. It means that because a company owns your characters, now anybody can do anything they want with your characters. And, who knows? I mean, it could be really good or it could be really bad. And ultimately, no matter what, artists aren't going to be compensated for any of it.
No.
And, and that I think can cause a lot of labor strife because, like, what if you're an actor and you don't want, you know, somebody like, say you're Harrison Ford and you don't want somebody to have the ability to have Indiana Jones join the Nazis. You don't like, what if but those are the kinds of things. I mean, because we've seen that people even playing with some of these, like, there's a whole video of people riffing with Fortnite with Darth Vader and the AI there making Vader say like, racist things. You know, like the good, there are a couple of things. I mean, on one hand, it might give somebody who has the imagination and the patience the opportunity to make an incredible short that will get them noticed as filmmakers. I mean, to me, Okay, there was this another naked hip hop analogy. There was a record, a reissue record back in the mid '80s, with James Brown called "The Jungle Groove." Right, that was the record that had Funky Drummer on it. You had the song Funky Drummer, and you had to basically wait for about 6 to 7 minutes within that long cut of the song to finally hear that really famous drum loop. But then there was also the bonus beats version, which just is the absolute perfect drum loop. And that's the version that everybody sampled because it was already done for them, ready to go. And so the good news is that on one hand, it led to an entire hip hop revolution because that beat, the funky drummer, that's the reason people even know the name Clyde Stubblefield to this day. And you hear that record and like all over the place. The bad news is that I mean Clyde didn't make any more money from that. James Brown's estate might have made some money, but who knows where that went? All these different issues. We can go all into that with sampling, but now you're able to do technology, on this technological base with movies. Like, who knows where this is going to lead, and who knows how people are going to be compensated? Because trust me, so many dope records that came from samples ultimately had to pay the piper, which is what led people to not using samples and then led in other directions. Who knows what's going to happen on the film side, both creatively, but I do know that because it doesn't sound like Disney's going to be paying royalties to anybody, it just seems like it's the kind of thing that could really break Hollywood apart, to be perfectly honest.
That's what kind of seems like the end game here is, from the outside looking in, it seems like these big money organizations like Disney, to do something like this, it's to get content out of characters that you own without having to pay anybody. An AI Spider-Man movie isn't going to cost anything for people to enjoy or whatever, as opposed to somebody coming in and writing a Spider-Man comic where you have to pay them. All this AI stuff to me just feels I'm not into AI. I know
Mhm.
there's ChatGPT folks and all these other programs that you're mentioning. It's just not for me. Now I am unk status, borderline elder. I'm not a young pup anymore, and maybe this stuff is more desirable to use for folks that are younger than me. But I'm also a former artist, and not just an artist. I'm a creator. I've written for Marvel. I've drew superheroes my whole life, and my eye is trained to see and tell me that's AI. This is actually done by a real artist, and I appreciate one a lot more than the other. And I think
Mhm.
the question is, going forward, where's that appreciation going to go between? Is it are people going to appreciate more something AI generated or an actual Alex Ross painting, if you will? I don't understand, like that. That's just me. I am not in the age group, I think, that these folks that are leaning so hard and investing so much money in I don't think they're worried about me.
Mhm.
But there is this kind of, I mean, I don't know. There are people that do use this stuff. I'm not one of them. I don't get it. Like, a billion with a B is a lot of money to invest in something that is so alienating to creatives, both writers, artists, producers, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
It just doesn't seem like a good move to me.
I I think the problem for me with AI, the technology is fascinating. I think that, like, so for example, like, it would allow somebody, like, say for example, the next Ryan Coogler or the next Spike Lee. Spike Lee makes, she's got to have it on credit cards for like 200, less than $200,000. I think when Ryan made Fruitvale Station, he probably, independently, he probably made that for a few $1,000,000, if even. It would allow somebody on that budget to be able to basically make a movie that technologically, in terms of special effects and clever use of green screens and other things, could rival Star Wars, the '77 version. Right now, someone could do that with that kind of time, that kind of money. So on one hand, it is definitely great from creators using it to expand certain things. The problem is, and I can talk to you about this from an artist and artistic standpoint. I mean, without necessarily breaking the veil of Marvel secrecy, I don't want any snipers coming after me. I trust me, I read those contracts. But there's a program called Pix that allows everybody involved with the project to see dailies. And the problem with a lot of executives, this isn't just true of Marvel, but it's true of a lot of companies, is that executives, for the most part, feel if they had enough time, they could write, they could edit, and they could basically dabble and make the kinds of changes that showrunners and writers do. And it really kind of gives everybody this feeling like they can do your job to a certain extent. And what happens is that in doing that, having the power to do that, they don't necessarily understand or know when to intervene, or the whole danger and beauty of creativity is like you got to make choices and you don't know if they're the right choices. That's where art comes from. It comes from that tightrope that you're trying to. It's like surfing. It's like you're going to surf right to the edge until you fall off the board. And those that do that, the artists that do that, you know, if everybody could just get on a scooter and hit a wave and just never fall off, then all the art and beauty of what it is to surf is lost from that. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's kind of the same thing. So it's like I think the thing is that the technology lets a lot of non-creative people feel like they can now be creators.
Hey, the
You
big
know?
news here is who is investing in this, because when you talk about Disney, you're talking about so many universes. You're talking about, you know, Mickey and Minnie, Donald, Goofy, Star Wars, Marvel. These are like iconic universes,
Mhm.
and for them to be utilized willingly by the company in AI technology, uh, uh, the spider sense is going off a little bit, but you know, I know what I'm always going to prefer to consume, and I just hope that this isn't the next step into seeing the type of stuff that I like no longer being made.
Well, that and it's like I don't think people are very cynical, and what I mean by that is that like you know I don't think that they've thought hard enough about what happens with this when people are very smart people are able to unlock the safeguards. And so all of a sudden it's like, there's going to be, I don't know, probably porn parodies of Star Wars and Marvel movies. But then at the same time, it's not even about getting lookalikes. It's you are going to be able to use the technology to actually have photorealistic actors doing whatever you want them to do. Very much that Black Mirror episode. I don't know if you saw that the Black Mirror
I know
episode
which one you're talking about. Yeah,
with Salma Hayek, where it's like basically once they've unlocked the technology, they can make you do anything they want. And now, like I mean, like you saw little bits and pieces of this. You can't. You have to lock up your rights even in death because they can continue
yeah,
your character if they
yeah,
have enough. I mean, God forbid.
and that's where it gets weird for me.
Yeah, I mean, like I understand why Morgan Freeman like made that deal to basically license his voice because at the very least, they have enough now. Like, and you see this where like sometimes on your Instagram algorithm, like they'll show Denzel Washington for like 10 seconds, and then they'll continue on with an AI voice that sounds just like Denzel telling you something, or Morgan Freeman, or take your pick. Like,
Michael Caine as well.
yeah. So I just think that it's really, I think it's dangerous from a creative standpoint. I think it's dangerous from a non-compensation standpoint. I think that because they're about to open up this apple cart, particularly as different unions are heading into different potential negotiations, without, I'm being, as a member of the Writers Guild, I'm being very careful because I don't want to stoke fears or anything else, but they've already released statements saying about how much they dislike this today.
Yeah,
Within 45 minutes before we got on, Writers Guild West has already released a statement talking about how much they don't like this. You know, and that's just from a writing standpoint. Who knows what the DGA or SAG or anybody else is going to say? So you have those issues. You have potential for misuse. Just it can unlocked, I mean, you can basically see anybody saying anything and not know it's real. Yeah, so it's they're not. I don't think that they're really thinking very hard about what they're doing, and I think that everybody's jumping on board and throwing money at the problem, saying "fuck it," as long as we profit from it. How bad could it be?
Yeah,
You know, and I think that's really just a mistake. You know.
agreed. I just it's just it was very eyebrow raising when you see in the headline Disney and AI and knowing that they're investing money into it. But we'll see.
Well, the problem is that you have 60 and 70-year olds who aren't up on the misuse of it that are making these decisions. Like, so, I mean, this is a perfect example. Like, Southland, when we are making Southland, there it was shot digitally, shot in high definition, but they never released it in high definition. And I sincerely think the reason that they never did was because a lot of the executives at Warner Brothers, the older executives, didn't own HD TVs.
They still had regular DVD players.
Right. And so, and that's the thing. It's like, for a lot of these people making these decisions, oh, yeah, well, my kids keep talking about this AI thing. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's funny. Hey, let's own that without thinking about all the different things that this thing can do in a different direction, you know?
No, it absolutely. It's just like when I was at the Washington Post, and the studio heads would be so, I don't say studio heads, but people in charge of public relations were always led by older folks that were very much adamant that we get this story in the New York Times, we get this Washington Post headline, when the numbers and the analytics and everything else were saying the audience and eyeballs that you want were on other platforms.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, it's going to be, may you live in interesting times, as the curse was wont to say. Um, We have two other things on the blurred down. We've got what Scarlett Johansson defecting from the MCU and now joining DC.
One, I always think it's cool when actors do both Marvel and DC things. This is very big news. It's just a rumor right now. There's nothing official, but it's been running in the trades, the Hollywood trades, that she is circling a role in the Batman Part 2 alongside Robert Pattinson, directed by Matt Reeves. Um, the role is rumored to be not just a romantic interest for Mr. Bruce Wayne, aka the Dark Knight Batman, but also a potentially villainous role.
Hmm.
People, the reaction to this has been wild to watch on social media, on YouTube, places I like to go when big news like this is announced. Everyone seems to be guessing that if she does take the role, because director Matt Reeves has said the villain in the Batman Part 2 is someone that we have not seen in live action. And that's like the real key. A lot of people think that she's going to be the Phantasm
Hmm.
from the very good Batman the Animated Series theatrical movie, Batman Mask of the Phantasm. This is a character that is a love interest to Bruce Wayne. They have a huge connection. They both dealt with tragedy with their parents. And she ends up being, there's a big red herring in the movie. Spoiler alert if you have not seen Batman Mask of the Phantasm, but that movie's been around for a long time. So hopefully if you've listened to this podcast, you've probably already seen it. But there's a big red herring that, it was her father that was actually the Phantasm. But it was actually her. I think, just looking at this potentially, first of all, there's no guarantee she's going to be the Phantasm. There's a very good chance we'll be getting our hopes up, and that's not it. But, and I just recently, when the news popped, I was like, you know what? I haven't watched this movie in decades. Let me dust it off and take a look. Still holds up. Probably one of the best Batman animated series stories ever told. But Scarlett Johansson has already been the Black Widow. She's currently leading the Jurassic Park franchise. She could bring a physicality to a movie. I could absolutely see her physically going up against Robert Pattinson's Batman.
Yeah, I mean she's an absolutely spectacular actress. And it's gonna, that's the thing. It's like she definitely elevates the material. And it's already in a heightened place because you have Matt Reeves, because Robin Pattinson's in it. We also saw the first Batman movie, which is really good, you know.
Very good.
So I think it's definitely interesting from that standpoint. My only beef, of course, is that these movies take forever. So we'd be like, what, 5 years
Yeah, but it
since?
does. I think it's supposed to start filming in the spring of 26, so that it can be released by. For now, these initial release dates never stick, but I believe right now the release date is October 1st, 2027.
It's a long time from now, man.
It is a long, long time.
I
It's gonna be a
mean,
whole.
what's interesting is that means that it will probably come out around the same time that Black Panther 3 hits,
That would be wild.
and so hopefully we'll find out more about, okay, are they going to recast T'Challa as the hashtag goes, or you know what's going to happen with that whole thing. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, in Ryan we trust. Whatever he wants to do, he can do. Like, it doesn't matter what he wants to do. I'm watching the movie, period,
Yeah,
and I'm gonna see it four or five times. I know that. You know, Cat doesn't miss. He just doesn't. I think Matt Reeves also, in terms of this universe, and also because of the success of the Penguin, he knows what he's doing, and so it'll be really interesting to kind of see what happens. Um, what's really going to be interesting is, okay, with this reboot, not really reboot. Okay, with this whole Doom thing with Feige and the Russo brothers and everything else, can they really pull it off? Like, is this going to be Tom Brady coming to the Buccaneers, or is this going to be Philip Rivers, you know, coming to the Colts?
coming to
I
the
mean,
cold.
and mind you, I mean, Philip could really light it up on Sunday. So we'll have to see. I mean, I'm not going to be able to see till way after the marathon,
You know what's
but
wild is a lot of people thought that the Doomsday trailer was going to drop today, alongside the Supergirl trailer. It did not. So TBD, to be determined, to be continued, whatever.
yeah,
I
I
didn't. I
don't
didn't
think
think that was going to happen.
Feige likes the bigger stage. I I suspect that the Doomsday trailer will drop with um Avatar,
Hmm.
and that the biggest problem is going to be preventing some jerk from leaking it early, because people love to do that.
Yeah.
But because those movies are being shot like specifically for IMAX, my guess would be that they would do like a big event IMAX trailer with Fire and Ash, you know. And I think the other one that they're going to debut like that, because I mean, technically they should be able to, would also be a Spider-Man teaser, particularly since it's shot for IMAX. So I think one of those two, if not both, end up hitting. Or what they could do is keep their powder dry until Super Bowl, and then drop the huge Super Bowl trailer. To give it extra momentum, because the movies would come out what, summer of 26.
Yeah. Well, shoot. Doomsday, I don't think comes out till the end of the year.
Yeah, so they have a lot of opportunities to shoot and reshoot and test, and
Yeah, Doomsday's not coming out until December 18th of 26.
good God. I mean, you think maybe they could film Blade by then? You know what I'm saying? It's just like, I, there there's so many different ways and so many different things to kind of get into.
Yeah, I don't think we're getting a teaser for that anytime soon. I think you're right. Maybe the Super Bowl. You're right. Feige likes the big stage, big eyes. There's a teaser coming out a year before movies coming out. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, I mean, it might, from the standpoint of, well, also who knows what's going to happen with Wonder Man. Like, uh, you know, the one thing I know from being inside of the Marvel bubble, and maybe the MCU is different than the MTU. What I loved about being in the MTU was that we didn't really worry about that kind of stuff until we had to, and then when we had it, we came with the goods. And that was the thing that I was lucky with, was that we never had any leaks, any real leaks. Honestly, it was a very tight ship. And then at the same time, it's like when you were looking at trailers and building things up, they would just drop things at the right time, you know. And if you were passionate about the process as a filmmaker, you could be as involved or uninvolved as you wanted to. So, you know, for me, in terms of Luke Cage, I was very involved, just in terms of picking Shimmy Shimmy Ya for that teaser for the Comic Con, and at the same time also just like, you know, really thinking about each tease for each season, what we used, how we used it, you know. So it's they have a lot of opportunities. I mean, I personally, my guess is that we'll probably see Spider-Man, but as a quote unquote surprise before we see a Doomsday trailer, because I
Yeah.
think they probably need more time. You know, and I think the place to do it is going to be the with these Avatar, you know, this new Avatar movie, which what's the buzz you're hearing, and just in terms of people's like, because you were supposed to see it, you didn't see it, but a lot of people have seen it. Like, what are
Yeah,
people saying?
I could have gone to an early December screening in the area. I couldn't make it. Um but the you know, it to me it's standard Avatar buzz. I feel like the Avatar world is just like, you know, hey, you want to see $1 billion? Like this fan base is so Avatar is not reliant on comic book fanboys, if you will.
Hmm.
Avatar is a type of movie that every day the you know, there's certain fan base, you know, the geeks going to come out and see Doomsday and all that stuff. But the studios don't just want the geeks, they want everybody. And
Hmm.
Avatar is one of those movies that everybody goes to see.
Yeah.
And the buzz now feels the same. As it's funny because the last Avatar movie that came out, because you know there's a lot of space in between these films. It's like, oh my god, this movie's so expensive. It needs to make $1 billion. Can it make it? And then it makes $1 billion. So
No, it didn't make $1 billion. It made $2 billion. They're the only sequels in history, I think, other than the Avengers, where each one made $2 billion.
it's
You
insane.
know,
So you know the precedent is set that you know it's not reliant on a very geeky fan base. It's very general pop kind of, you know, folks can go to see it. I think Avatar is going to be just fine. I have not seen it yet. Missed the screening. Are you planning on seeing it when it comes out?
but definitely. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, that is the one thing like for me, what I love about the Christmas holiday is that the biggest movies tend to come out around Christmas. And so part of it is being, you know, because the town, you know, Hollywood, the town, so to speak, shuts down basically by after Wednesday of next week. It's just a wrap until New Year's because, you know, they all go on their exotic vacations or they all start reading all the things you've been laboring over. Been busting your behind to try to get in, you know. And so when you're not getting those calls over those 2 weeks, it really is the opportunity to actually catch up on shows and see things. And so I'm looking forward to, you know, seeing some of these big movies, you know, showing up early so that I can watch some of these trailers. That is my one pet peeve is I hate missing trailers.
I do
And
too.
when you're
Messes
trying
up
to
the
bond
whole
with
movie.
family and oh, it doesn't matter, the movie's not gonna start for the 20 minutes. I'm like, to me, the trailers are the damn movie.
I hate people who are like, "Oh, it's the movie starts at 7 o'clock. Oh, we don't have to be there till 7:20 because you know it's 20 minutes trailers. I want to see the trailers."
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. I mean, to me, sometimes the trailers are the best part of the entire experience, you know,
Absolutely.
and particularly Christmas trailers because they really are setting up, you know, the spring and the summer. So
I went to go see Minority Report at Union Station here in DC, where if you're from DC, that's where the Amtrak train station is. There used to be a movie theater at the bottom. I my college girlfriend at the time, we were supposed to see Minority Report together, but they were showing the Daredevil trailer, Ben Affleck's Daredevil, with Minority Report. I knew that because I was on a site called superherohype.com. They always had the info. I paid for a ticket, watched the Daredevil trailer, and then got up and walked out. That's how much I love trailers.
yeah, well,
So don't short
that's
me on my trailers.
that's next level, brother. That's definitely next level. You know. But yeah, no, I think that'll be really interesting to see what trailers are coming. I think it's going to be good to kind of, you know, the problem with television as it currently is, all the streaming, is that they are literally not enough hours in the day to watch all the damn shows that drop.
Yeah.
And so like I'm embarrassed that I haven't. I need to catch up on the It show on Welcome to Derry.
Yeah.
Um, but the good news is that because I wasn't watching week to week, I can binge and watch the entire thing.
Yeah.
Um, I am. Some people don't like binging. I like it when all the episodes drop all at once. Um, some people
Hey,
like it when they drop
that's how
two at
you
a
brought
time.
that's how you brought Luke Cage into the world. So
Yeah, I mean, and I think that that's valuable. I think that it's always good when you can kind of see something in its entirety. Like that would kind of be like releasing a record, two songs a piece, and which they've done that. They've tried that model of releasing a song every week and then eventually get the record. I personally just like to get the entire record. Like my early birthday present is that Nas DJ Premier record is
oh,
supposed to
nice.
drop. It's just dropping tonight. It's just, I mean, it's probably going to drop in an hour and a half for you because you're on the East Coast, and so it'll
Yep, it's
drop at
almost
midnight.
midnight over. Yep.
Yeah. So, so happy birthday for you. Um,
I'll enjoy listening to it for you.
yeah. The last thing we have to talk about is, of course, the artist who basically created Brian Michael Bendis, of course, as the writer of Miles Morales. These collaborations. Frank Miller and John Byrne are some of the few artists and Todd McFarlane, of course, are the most famous for writing and drawing comics. But the usual split is that someone writes, someone
There's a writer and
you
there's an
it
artist.
yeah. So perfect example is like my old boss and dear friend Jeff Loeb, created so many iconic Batman and Superman stories,
And did them with
and
Tim
as well as
Sale.
Daredevil, and then Tim Sale as the artist,
Yeah.
brought Jeff's words visually to life, and it was that kind of collaboration.
And in the case of
Almost.
Miles Morales, well, it always kind of goes. People say, "Oh, Brian Michael Bendis, creator. He's the co-creator. He was the writer. Was his idea." But Sarah Pichelli is an Italian artist, and she was the first person to draw Miles Morales with Brian Michael Bendis in his first appearance in a Marvel comic. And she came out recently and said that, because let's face it, Miles, pop cult, pop culture icon,
Hmm.
well beyond the pages of the comic book. One of the greatest superhero movies of all time, the Spider-Verse movies,
Hands
a
down.
popular video game, uh, action figures. Miles is everywhere, and he's beyond the pages of the comics. And Sarah came out because she's still very popular, a big hit at conventions. She'll always go down. She's done a lot of stuff, but she'll always go down as the co-creator of Miles Morales. She came out and says she's not getting any royalties. Now you and I know because you and I have both created things for
Hmm.
Marvel Entertainment. Myself on the comic book side, yourself on the television streaming side. You kind of know this going in.
Hmm.
Um, as much as it stings, I understand her kind of, you know, in a way she's not saying I can't believe it, but she's almost saying like, here's this thing I helped co-create. It's one of the most recognizable superheroes on the planet right now. Part of one of the biggest movie franchises ever, super popular. Um, I'm not getting more than what I was paid to, create and draw those comics.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's the thing. This is the reason why Image Comics exists. Because when Todd
Absolutely.
McFarlane remixed Spider-Man in terms of the look with the bigger eyes and just the kind of like the whole look of Spider-Man to a certain extent, and that comic just, blew the doors off sales wise. He's not making any more money off of that. Jim Lee,
Rob
who had
Liefeld.
incredible runs on X Men and other comics, wasn't seeing any of that. Rob Liefeld, of course, who did the same thing with introducing Deadpool in his in the New Mutants and everything, and Cable and all that stuff.
Eric Larson, Savage Dragon, Mark
Yeah.
Silvestri, Cyberforce.
Well, all of them said, you know what? We're not getting paid the way that we should because of these archaic contracts. So we're going to basically break out and form our own company so that we
Remember,
can be
remember
comp.
earlier. Remember earlier, you were talking about how there's always the old guy in the room making the decision.
Yeah.
The old guys at Marvel back then, were convinced that it was the characters that were selling those, because they were selling that, all those guys we just named, McFarlane, Lee, Liefeld, Larson, Silvestri, they were selling a lot of comics for Marvel. Marvel was convinced back then that it was the characters themselves that were bringing in the sales, and that it didn't matter who was drawing, that the
Right.
characters were always going to sell. And these guys, all young, and most of them, I think, in their 20s back then,
Hmm.
knew that that was not the case, knew that they were bringing something different to it. And they go out and create Image Comics.
Right. And then in Todd's case, because Todd was always really kind of the more entrepreneur minded of all of them, you know, once that model only compensated so much and got really political and, a lot of other things happened, he then, of course, forms McFarlane Toys, which still, bar none, makes some of the best toys and figures. He's elevated figures just, even beyond, um, you know, movies. But I mean, their football action figures, their hockey action figures are incredible. You know,
Bro, I got this Michelle Pfeiffer Batman Returns right here. I don't even want to take this out the box. It's such a nice figure. Look at
yeah.
this.
That's exactly what I'm saying. It's like, I mean, he's figured out his forever check, and so on one hand, I think part of what it is that this is true of any artist right now, because you're seeing this same thing happen right now. With these layoffs at places like Rolling Stone and Variety and everything else, one of the main things driving podcasts is that it allows writers and people that are used to being compensated for covering certain places to now own themselves and to monetize in ways that they never could. And so I think what's going to happen is like every person becomes their own potential network, their own potential magazine,
Their own
um,
platform.
their own platform. And for better for worse, we've seen people make. I'm saying for better for worse because particularly on the conservative side, on the MAGA side, people have made millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And at the same time, don't get it twisted. I mean, because Obama's ex speechwriters, crooked, they formed their own empire too. So everybody has figured out a way to do things that they would normally not be paid the same way. So what she's saying is valid, and I think shocks a lot of people. But then at the same time, I'm hoping that she'll have the opportunity beyond conventions to either use a platform to create something, or maybe you know Marvel maybe would recognize her contributions differently. And I think what's going to happen for future collaborators is that they're going to try to either say, okay, probably in contracts or whatever, say, look, if you have enough juice, I want to make sure that if my character ends up in a movie or becomes a movie, that at the very least I'm a passive producer on it. You
Yeah.
know, um,
It's when I saw this news, I couldn't help but relate to it, because the few times I've written for Marvel Comics, it's been Miles Morales. And I had the very cool experience of, I've already shown this once this episode, but our boy here in the Boricua suit,
mhm,
first this appeared in the first Miles Morales comic that I wrote for
mhm,
Marvel Comics. It has since appeared in the Miles Morales video game, and it's now an action figure. When I was at New York Comic Con, there were a bunch of Boricuas up there in New York cosplaying as this suit right here.
yeah,
Uh, I have not received, now, was I paid to write this comic? Absolutely. Did I
yes,
sign a contract saying that I was going, I was going to give them XYZ and they were going to pay me XYZ? But, those contracts very specifically state that you were being paid for this thing, and
mhm.
that then they can take this thing that you have made for them and utilize it any way they want in the future, and you're not getting compensated because in their eyes they've already paid you for it.
Well, true. Well, I mean, so for example, in my case, okay, this is the classic Luke Cage, yellow shirt, chain belt, tiara, the whole nine. And what I was a part of creating is very different. Now, mind you, Mike Coulter is Mike Coulter. And so for me, owning this is two things. I'm proud of the fact that I got to work on this version of Luke Cage and that Mike Coulter as Luke Cage, that even though I didn't cast him, Melissa Rosenberg did, I thought he was an excellent choice, and together we made magic with Luke Cage. The reason I have this is that the fact that there's yellow lining in the hoodie was my choice. The fact that it's a car hoodie was a choice that I made. The fact that he's wearing Timberland boots, another choice that I made. You know what I'm saying? And so it's a reminder to me, as much as I want to celebrate this version of Luke Cage, which I had a hand in creating, it's also a reminder to me that I don't own any of this. And so that at the same time, it's a reminder that you have to create IP. You have to be a part of that. And while, of course, I'm always going to celebrate being a part of this because it has given me so much, at the same time, it's also, it makes me also understand, as much as I'm sure Ryan Coogler appreciates Black Panther, it's also why he did what he did with Sinners, which is
Yeah.
that it was something that was wholly came from him that he has full and complete ownership over. And I think that as an artist, you do both. I mean, because James Cameron, has limited ownership over the Terminator, which is why he's always been involved and not been involved in some of the sequels. Sometimes he comes back, sometimes he doesn't, because because he already got rid of those rights or his control over those rights a long time ago. But at the same time, every time, Arnold gets a check, he's happy. He's like, yo, like he's happy that Arnold has kept the character alive. The same
Yeah.
way that for me, whether or not I'm ever involved with Luke Cage again, if Coulter is involved and I'm not involved, I'm still happy because I'm always gonna be happy for my brother Mike. And at the same time, it's a recognition that we did something together that people really loved. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, you know, you understand why James Cameron puts so much energy into the Avatar universe because he has so much ownership over it, you know? And so I think that's something that artists have to really think about that, okay, you get in with where you fit in, so to speak. I mean, because even with James Cameron got in, not just in terms of, with two things he didn't own any IP. He did create Aliens, and also when he was the co-writer of what became, the second Rambo 2, which was actually the most popular version of Rambo. He co-wrote that screenplay. And he wrote those back to back, honestly, as two assignments, and so it it turned him into a powerful director, and at the same time a highly recognized writer. But at the same time, it also fueled his creative entrepreneurial passion, and that's what kind of keeps him going. I mean, same thing happened with Steven Spielberg. I mean, he has so many things he's been a part of. He gets whether it's the rides at Universal Studios, his movies, things he's produced. He's found ways to keep himself in the game, even when he's not actually Jurassic Park. He gets a check from every single Jurassic Park movie. I don't think he's directed one since like '95
Yeah.
or sorry, '98. I think since the second one. You know what I'm saying? So it's like that's really the reminder. Like I certainly appreciate what Sarah Pacelli is saying. But I think it's also a reminder that we always have to think about, how can we blow up the opportunities that we're given to then, if we don't have ownership over a character, how can we have a piece of something the next time around?
I'm glad you brought up pride and the pride you feel in holding up that Luke Cage statue, putting the accent of the yellow in the hoodie, which is brilliant because we all know in the comics he had primarily yellow, so it's kind of a
Right.
wink to the fans. I'm really glad you brought that up because is it a sensitive topic? Yes. You create something and then a company like makes money off of it and you're not getting a piece of it. It's it's the dice that you roll. When
Hmm.
I wrote my first Miles Morales comic, I was paid for it, and I knew that I wasn't getting anything else. I think there's a possibility, potentially, if he shows up in this suit in the next Spider-Verse movie, then maybe I have a case for something. But a lot of times, I think there are ways where they can wiggle their way out of that too. I will
Hmm.
say this though, I too feel an immense amount of pride in the few comics I've written despite the fact that I'm seeing my idea appear in other platforms. I'm the first Puerto Rican to ever write Miles Morales. I'm the first person that, just like Miles, is also Puerto Rican and half African American, just like Miles. So I
Mm-hmm.
those two things I have an intense amount of pride about because they mean a lot to me. Because no comic book character means more to me than Miles. When he was created, I never thought in a million years I'd get the chance to write him. I always had a story in the back of my mind, but I never thought the opportunity would come up. And when for the opportunity, for not only for the opportunity to come up, but for me to have left a lasting impact. This suit's going to be around a long time. You're always going to see this Halloween's in New York, Comic Cons, you name it, and that means a lot to me. But as you also said, eventually the lesson to be learned here is create your own stuff. And what writing Miles Morales for Marvel has done for me is it's opened up doors for me to be able to pitch ideas that I could potentially own at other areas. And those are things that I'm working on right now. I can't get into exactly what it is, but I can say that me taking that chance and writing that Miles Morales comic has opened up doors for me down the line to potentially do other things that I could potentially have ownership in. And that's a
Mm-hmm.
nice conversation prize. Would I like some trickle down cash? Absolutely. We could all use some.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm very prideful of leaving a mark on one of the most important characters in the history of Marvel Comics.
No, absolutely. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I do get, Writers Guild compensation in terms of royalties from, Luke Cage, which is why I'm
Right.
sensitive to this whole AI thing, because I do think that, if you're part of the creation of an aesthetic, you should have the opportunity um, to, wait a second, to be compensated for that. But at the same time, the opportunity that you were given in the first place helps spur other creativity. Like, you know, I go all the way back to my journalism. There was a time when I was unpublished. And when you publish that first article and you see your byline, it gives you the confidence saying, hey, maybe I can write something else. Maybe the next time I write, I can do a better job. I can ask questions I didn't ask last time. Maybe I can do a
That's
better
so
job
true.
of describing the scenes in these profiles. And each article builds your confidence and in your ability to capture scenes, moods, and information on the page. And then for me, after doing that, like the first time getting a screenwriting credit, co-writing Notorious, and then ultimately writing television for like Southland and Almost Human and Ray Donovan. Um, those made it easier to then when I'm working on an episode. Every single episode you get when you assigned, you're like, oh, this is where I prove I don't know what I'm doing. And sometimes you got to put the episode and watch your episode with your name on it and watch it and be like, hey, I do know what I'm doing. I do know how
Hmm.
to do this. And even the thing is now, it's like, even like, there have been times where it's like, you know, the last Luke Cage it's been since 2018. And to be part of so many different things that good projects that just haven't gotten made, sometimes you're like, should I hang this up? Should I just become a novelist? Should I just do this? And then you're working on a scene, and then you go back to some of the scenes that you've been a part of that you wrote, and or some of which you were credited for, some of which you'll see and that you were part of the writing, but no one will ever know. And even like in terms of like some of the feature films that I've worked on, where I have scenes in Straight Outta Compton, or scenes, even in Creed 2, where I only got story by credit, but didn't get screenplay credit, but like things, scenes, dialogue, things that I worked on. Having it, and being able to pull it up, I don't want to call it an ego boost. What I want to call it is confirmation that creatively you can keep going even when there are times that you feel like, you know, this isn't what needs to happen anymore. And that's really the thing that I think honestly about, like you're saying, like just the fact that it survived, just the fact that there's people still talk about Luke Cage, and whether I'm involved in it or not, you know, I loved working on that show. I loved working with the actors and the creators and the craftsmen, and everybody involved with the show. It was a family. And so you just feel just such, not really, I don't call it ownership. You just feel like it's a combination of nostalgia and pride, being part of a championship team. Because everything that ever gets made and gets out there, honestly, is a mini miracle. Because there's so many ways to mess it up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, like I agree. Pride is the perfect word because you just happen to be a part of it, and then at the same time, rather than hating on people that are trying to make this dream also theirs, you celebrate when they reach that level and get things made, and you say welcome to the club because we all realize how hard it is for any of this stuff to get made. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And so like that's why like I find Ryan Coogler so inspiring because I met him so early on in his career and then just to see just how far he continues to take things, it's just like, man, it's like when you see somebody do that, it also makes you think, you know what, if I follow that example, who knows, I'm probably not going to be as successful, but at the very least in following that example, there's the opportunity to also tell really great stories.
I might not get another dime. All I want, I this has been a wild, I've written like 2 Miles Morales comics for Marvel. And yet seeing the impact and the different platforms, seeing my idea in a video game and seeing it in an action figure, it's it's been a really fun ride watching all these things. I had a friend just yesterday text me a photo because he was at Target and they had the Boricua suit Miles Morales just hanging up on the rack in Target. He's like, "Yo, look, I'm in Target in Virginia. Look at your boy." So it's been a fun ride. The only thing I would love if the suit showed up in the last Spider-Verse movie. That's the only thing I'm asking for. You know,
Yeah. What no, like,
not for cash windfall, just because that would be like the triple crown for me. Like I've gotten the video game, I've gotten the action figure, give me the animated movie, and then that'll be my triple crown.
Well, for me, it's funny because there was a video that came out today of Barack Obama went back to his Hyde Park barbershop, which actually used to be my barbershop when I lived in Hyde Park in Regent's Park. Like there was all a bunch of times where I went to that same barbershop and they'd be, "Oh yeah, you just missed your man." You know what I'm saying? This was back in his Senator Obama days, right? You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
and the fact that he went back because the free haircut list in Luke Cage, it was basically an amalgamation of Ben's Chili Bowl. I think had a list, or there were certain people that they always
They
said that,
do. Yeah.
yeah, that was kind of my version of the Ben's Chili Bowl list, as well as but applying it to a barbershop. The barbershop I based both on a barbershop I used to go to in Sherman Oaks, and at the same time also thinking about the Hyde Park barbershop, and that's why I put Obama on the free haircut list, and it was crazy seeing the thing today because I was like, man, okay, all right, should I reveal this or not? Well, I mean, this is hypothetical. It's a big if. I would have loved for Obama to collect his free haircut in Luke Cage season 3, and it would have been great had that happened. And
It's wild because all the podcasting they're doing now, you might have been able to get that request.
you know what I'm saying? That it would have been a really interesting, fun cameo. I mean, I feel less fear about revealing that kind of thing because a lot of people also know the origin of the swear jar and how that entirely was motivated by my friendship with Prince. And I was going to pitch him actually being in the finale of season 1 of Luke Cage and was laying the groundwork. And I was going to show him the one of the finished episodes to try to get him to come on the show. But unfortunately, um, when I was in my meeting for Creed, my very first creative meeting to try to get the job for Creed 2, I found out in the middle of the meeting that he died. I literally, thank God the executive was understanding. He let me cancel the meeting, and then I came back another day because I couldn't, I
Yeah.
couldn't deal with it, you know, right then. But creatively, at least I couldn't. But that's the thing. Is like, I also that was the plan. Also, we had actually written D'Angelo, to because we almost got D'Angelo season 1 of Luke Cage for those first 2 episodes, and when D'Angelo's tour schedule didn't allow him to do it, because he agreed to do it, but this tour schedule didn't work out. That's how we got Raphael Sadiq to do that first episode, because they're all of them know each other and have collaborated with each other. So Sadiq helped us out on that. But that was one of those what ifs. Yeah, like when those things happen, you think about things that could have happened, and then you're also appreciative of the things that did happen. Like Sharon Jones and the Dat Kings. The fact that we got her was amazing, and also I mean, so many of those Daftone artists, Charles Bradley. Like, I mean, even some of the, a lot of the blues songs, like, Kingfish, who also, is in Sinners. You know, we ostensibly discovered when we had him in episode 4 of season 2 of Luke Cage. You know,
Now I want some Ben's Chili Bowl,
yeah,
which is like right around the corner for me. If you don't know, if you're not from DC, Ben's Chili Bowl is one of the most iconic black restaurants in the District of Columbia. Same ownership and dope chili dogs.
yeah. I definitely, next time I'm in DC, because recently when I've gone to Ben's Chili Bowl, it's been at the airport. It's been at Reagan National Airport. But
Yeah,
I,
they
I
have
need
one at
that to
Reagan
keep.
as well.
I need that to
But
keep.
that's technically, and for those that don't know, Reagan Airport is technically in Virginia.
Yeah.
So
So
you want to get the real experience, you got to come to DC, U Street, make it happen.
all right. So next time I'm in town, like next time, like when I come out to DC, we definitely got to hit up Ben's Chili Bowl.
Got to make it happen, man.
Yeah. And I think with that, and also because I'm about to go get dinner, you're probably about to go to sleep. We'll bring this episode to a close, and again, we're gonna come back one more time before the New Year's. So we're gonna miss next week. But the thing is, what we want to do, what the plan is that we'll have one more kind of year-end wrap-up episode, and
Hmm.
also some more trailers will drop. I mean, we'll actually get to see what trailers drop with Avatar, and we'll talk about those, and we'll also have the opportunity to kind of talk about some of the things coming up in 2026, which I think is going to be another landmark, if not crazy year in movies. But we should have more answers, and interesting times. But until then, I'm Cheo Hodari Coker,
And I'm David Betancourt.
and together we are Blerds in the Attic.
See you
Peace,
next time.
Excelsior, and happy birthday to me.
Feliz cumpleaños.